Hey guys, hope you're going great and welcome to another episode of the podcast. Got a little bit of a different episode for you this time around. I've been really thinking about this podcast and I realized I couldn't really articulate well why I'm doing it and what it's all about. And I thought I really need to sit down with somebody to be able to flesh out these ideas and articulate it so that I can know who I'm trying to make the podcast for, why I'm trying to do it, so that I can make it the best possible experience for everybody listening and watching, which is you guys. So I thought I could find somebody, sit down with them behind closed doors in my own time and then kind of come up with the ideas. But I thought, why not record it, make it an episode? Because I know that so many of you guys out there as well are trying to articulate the thoughts in your head and your dreams for the future, but you just don't know how to. Let's record it. People can listen along if they want to and go along with the process and gain value from it as well. So a good mate of mine, Jonno White, he's really great at using frameworks to pull information out of somebody and help them articulate their feelings and thoughts. Jonno runs a business called Clarity, which aims to help leaders become the best they can possibly be, and he explains a lot more about that in the episode. This is a little bit different, it goes for a bit longer. It's going to be part 1 of 2. I reckon you'll love it if it's something that you're interested in, but if not, feel free to skip this one and move on to something else. I reckon there's real value in this conversation because it really helps create a framework to be able to articulate what's in our head. And I got so much out of it. I'm so stoked that now I have a clear direction for this podcast. It excites me so much for what the future holds. I really hope you enjoy this conversation. It was late into the night when we recorded this and my stomach was going ballistic and it was making so many noises. So if you hear some noises, it's only my stomach, I promise. But anyway, hope you guys love it. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this video and leave a comment so I can know what you guys enjoyed about it. I love hearing feedback, so the more the better. Hope you guys love it. I hope you're doing well, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. See ya. Thank you so much for tuning in again to the podcast. And today I've got something different for you all. So I've got my good mate here, Jonno White. We're such good mates that he was actually one of my groomsmen, which is
it's true.
That's your privilege.
Special day.
It was a
beautiful moment, beautiful day, beautiful man.
Yeah. Well, I was a bit more beautiful back then, but it's all right.
That's true.
And essentially the reason that we're kind of chatting tonight on this Monday night is I really want to figure out and get a clearer picture of what I want to do with this podcast, the audience that I want to serve with this podcast, the direction I want to take. And I've been struggling to kind of just sort of think about that myself. And I know Jonno here is quite talented at helping people through this and sort of helping people articulate, getting the words out. And he's going to explain what he does in a second. But I thought, well, we could either do this in a room just with him and I, or we could film it, record it, so that people that are also going through this, because I feel like there's a lot of people that kind of just are stuck in, they have an idea, but they can't articulate it. I thought, well, let's just share the knowledge and the value that he gives me so that I can then pass it on to other people. So this is what we're doing. If that's something you are not interested in at all, feel free to go and watch Netflix and have a sleep. But if you are interested in it,
get lost.
Go and binge something. But if you are interested, tune in because I reckon you will all get some value from it. So I'm going to stop rambling. Jonno, give us a quick, brief description on who you are, what you do, and explain yourself a little bit.
Yes. So I am Jonno White, close friend of Sir Richard Bryant I, as he's mentioned. Married to Liz. Liz is Greek. I am, and therefore a bit of an adopted Greek. So I have my family on one side and Liz's Greek family, and it's a lot of fun. We've been married coming up on 9 years this year, which is exciting. I run I have a consultancy called Clarity. So I work with Christian schools and churches and also Christian charities. basically my passion in life is to invest in people to become everything they're meant to be. And I think that's why part of the reason I was drawn to doing this with you, Richo, because that's this is obviously a chance for me to do that, is to spend a bit of time investing in you. At a higher level, for clarity, my dream is for Christian organizations to be the healthiest in the world. So I believe that churches and Christian schools, Christian charities, if we're actually following Jesus and doing what we say we believe really well, then Christian organizations should be the healthiest in the world, and people should just absolutely talk up what it's like to work at a church or a Christian school or a Christian not-for-profit, and just great places where people fulfill their potential and people invest in you and really care for you, as well as being super productive and successful. And yeah, so how do I do that in terms of what I do every day? I do one-on-one coaching, so a little bit like this, so some personal vision sort of coaching like what we're doing. Then I also do some leadership coaching, which is more about helping a pastor or a principal in their context to lead in the very difficult contexts of Christian schools, churches, and charities. And then probably my biggest passion that I get to do is take leadership teams away on offsites and take a whole team away, spend a day or two with the team, help them really get healthier as a team, and to clarify direction as a team. And that has a lot of crossover with what we're doing today, because we're talking about getting clear on your direction as team Richo. And it is different for an entrepreneur than it is for a team that's leading a school with 200 staff. And so I love being in a room with a team, with a facilitating for a leader, but I also love doing this sort of stuff. And one of the things I've learned in the past few years is that they're very different.
That's good, man. Well, with all that expertise, let's impart some of that into me and help me articulate this stuff. So yeah. I'm not really sure what the next step is here, but that's why I have you on the show. So what would be the first kind of what would be the first kind of step, would you say, of this process?
Yeah, well, what I'll try to do is, as we go through it, I'll try to talk to anyone out there who might be listening who's keen to do this for themselves as well. The first thing I'd say is that it's something that, to do this sort of process, you need to have someone across the table from you to do it with. Even for myself, I've found it most beneficial when I've had someone else working with me and actually listening and then reflecting back. So even if it's a good friend, or if you have someone who's a coach or a mentor, then this is definitely something you can do. In terms of what we're going to go through, so there's sort of two components to personal direction, I guess, which is what we're talking about. There's your high level personal direction, which includes, your purpose. We might call it your calling. What is it? Why is Richo Bryant here? What is it about you that's uniquely you, and that's actually there's a specific purpose for your life, and there's things that you are passionate about that other people aren't. And then for a business like yours, or for, with what you're doing and with this podcast, it's about taking that purpose and actually articulating it, staying at that high level, but actually sort of saying, okay, if this is what I'm passionate about, there's some other components that go with that. Things like, what can I actually be the best in the world at, which we'll talk about. And then there's you start getting practical, but you're still up in the clouds, talking through a picture of what it might look like to be successful in, say, 10 years' time. So that's what we're going to spend a bit of time on today. And then we'll probably have a second part another time, where we'll actually take that, drill that down, and try to take some high-level personal direction and actually break it down to things like a 3-year goal or a picture for 3 years, things like your brand promises, a guarantee. So this sort of stuff I might ordinarily go through with someone over 6 months. If you want to do it really, if you want to be really thorough and slow and meticulous going through each piece. But I think we'll go as deep as we can, but we'll also go as fast as we can to just get as much, to make this as helpful as possible for everyone who's listening, and also for you.
It's sort of like
we'll get through as much of that as we can.
Streamlined.
Yeah, exactly.
Way of doing it, isn't it? Yeah, Definitely.
And so that's a bit of the picture of where we're going, and where we want to land ideally at the end of the second is to actually have a plan for the next 3 months.
That would be amazing.
That has some details around, okay, this is what the next 3 months needs to look like. But where we're going to start now is actually to go all the way back to Richo in terms of who you are. And I love Simon Sinek's work around why. His books Start With Why and Find Your Why. And so we're going to use a little bit of his work to start. So we're going to talk about really trying to drill down on what you are most passionate about and talking a little bit about your why. How we're going to do that is I'm going to get you to answer this question. I want you to think about what are the moments in your life to this date up to now that have had the greatest impact on you becoming who you are. Moments. So not a narrative, not a person, but if there is a person who is influential, there has to be a moment. So we're talking specific moment, time, place, something happened, good, bad, whatever it is, that has had the most significant impact on you becoming who you are. What I'm going to get you to do is I'm going to get you to describe them back to me. So I'm giving you a bit of time to start thinking now. I'm going to get you to describe them back to me, and I want you to describe as much about that specific moment as you can, particularly what you were feeling at that particular moment. And once again, for anyone who is watching along, this is something that you can do with a friend. You can do it in one session. You can break it up into a few sessions over coffee. It's good to have a spot where you can be a bit private, like what obviously we're doing this in front of the world, because Richo's opening
people.
up his world. Yeah, billions.
Billions.
Particularly China. I hear there's a humongous following in China.
Oh, mate, we go off over there. It's crazy.
It makes sense. And so if you are following along, this is something you can do. There's a person, so basically you have a person who's answering these questions, and you have a person who's listening. I'm obviously the person listening. Richo's going to be unpacking some of the things that come to mind. And don't think you have to think of 20 right now. If you think of one, you unpack that, and what you'll find is it'll prompt you to think of others. And the person who is listening, if you're watching this at the moment, you'll be able to see I'm just holding this up to show that there's a piece of paper with one line down the middle. So you've got two columns. At the top of the left column is facts, and the top of the right column is themes. And so as you're listening, Richo's going to be telling me some facts about what happened. And it's, as a listener, it's really helpful to do this, to actually write down, okay, became an astronaut and flew first moon mission. That's a fact, but there might be a theme. And it's important to separate facts from themes, because what we're looking for here as we drill down into these stories, there's in stories, there's actually, in terms of imparting what you were saying before, Richo, like when we're telling stories, we're actually imparting things that we might otherwise struggle to articulate. And so what I'm going to be trying to do is to listen to you and then feed back to you, hey, this is what I heard in terms of the facts, but then particularly I'll be focusing on feeding back to you. Here's a couple of themes. And what I'm going to be looking for is where I see the same theme multiple times. You might tell 4 stories and there might be a theme that comes through in 3 of those stories. I'm going to pay particular attention to that, and then we're going to chat through that. So, Richo, there's no right or wrong answers. It's about whatever comes to mind.
And just for complete transparency and clarity, no pun intended, about the business, but I had no idea any of these questions were coming, so I'm quite stumped. But so I'm looking for a moment, just so I can clarify it, a moment in time that I really feel impacted my life.
Yes, the most impactful moments that impacted you in terms of you becoming who you are today. And it's really good to go with your gut. If something comes to mind and you're like, nah, there might be a reason for that. So if something comes to mind, just unpack that. There's no right or wrong answers. It's about you articulating that. So,
okay. I guess one of the first things that came to my mind, and I don't know if this is, I guess there's no right or wrong answers, but would be my wedding day. For instance, that was like, so that came straight to my mind. That was like a pivotal moment for me.
Yep.
And I think it was, well, obviously it was important because I got to marry the love of my life, Danielle. She's listening right now. I should get some serious brownie points for this. But,
mate, well done.
And that was impactful for me. One, that I obviously was able to get married, incredible. But also, I think it was important to kind of, there's something that I value about like publicly declaring stuff. So it was like a very public commitment to Danielle, and we kind of had the wedding, had the reception, all that sort of stuff. We got to celebrate with our friends. And what I took away from that was this real, I really enjoy those moments. I really enjoy those moments where everybody's kind of there for one purpose. If that makes any sense at all.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. So like I really love going to weddings, or not even just weddings, like to like a concert where every single person is there to get something out of that moment. Whether at a wedding, that's the bride and groom are obviously getting something out of it, but the people are there to celebrate. And
is there a moment on your wedding day through the ceremony or receptions that come to mind that is particularly, if you had to bring it like even closer, just not the day, but a particular moment, and where you were, and describe how you're feeling in that moment through the day that comes to mind as particularly significant?
Yeah, one of the most significant parts, I think, was the preparation of the day. So obviously you would know because you were part of the wedding party, but we all kind of stayed in an apartment the night before, and there was that period where we kind of were all sitting around. I don't know if you remember, we were sitting around in the lounge room area of this apartment, and the guys, my older brother, yourself, a couple of the other guys that were already married, they were kind of sharing those kind of do's and don'ts, some of the wisdom and encouragement that they were wanting to impart in me. And I was kind of just sitting there like going, man, I just remember now, I'm thinking back how much I valued that time of actually sitting there with people that had done the journey, had gone through it, and could kind of give me that wisdom. And at the time, some of that stuff that you guys were saying, I was like, oh, whatever. Like, it feels like, it was a good moment. But there was something really, I kind of, that sort of set the theme for the rest of the day for me. I was like, these are my boys. We've got this. Yeah. I wasn't nervous from then on. It was kind of just like, you guys have got my back. Yeah, that's interesting. I'd never really, now that I think that was really, there's something in that moment. This is valuable already. I'd never thought about that to that extent.
Yeah, that's good. What else? What's another moment in your life that's been really impactful for Richo becoming who Richo Bryant is today?
Now this one's a bit different. I can't exactly remember the specifics, like date and time. Yeah. But one of them would be, so I used to be very much like, I kind of wasn't interested. I didn't like school. I didn't want to go to uni. I wasn't interested in kind of like learning things. And I was very much like, oh, I'll just got to get a job, get going, and then life will kind of fall into place. There was a moment when I was at my old job, which I was as an engineer or a draftsman at an engineering company. So sitting in front of a computer, and I was just looking through YouTube bludging, and I came across like a video that was more like a documentary. You know, like a YouTube, they like have, a 20-minute video about this fact, and something I can't even remember what that video was about. I'm sure it was like some conspiracy theory or something silly, but something in that, and as you probably would know, like something inside of me just went, man, this learning thing is incredible. Like, and something happened where I just was like, I just got to keep learning stuff. And so that took me down the route of how can I look at all these different podcasts? How can I find YouTube videos to invest in me? How can I find free online courses? And I think Danny and I were married at the time, and even she was like, what the heck's going on? Like, all of a sudden I was obsessed with, I learned this new thing today. I learned this, and not just, hey, I watched this YouTube video, but I looked at this and then I researched it and I found, those things were true and those things were not true.
Yeah.
So I would say that's a pivotal moment for me, like a very pivotal moment for me, because that unlocked my love for learning.
Yeah.
And then also kind of in a way has led me into a bunch of the other moments. And now I'm thinking of some others as well. So
just tell me, what is it about that moment where you're sitting at the computer and this video came on YouTube? Why do you think that moment comes to mind more than others now as we're unpacking this?
I think it came to mind, one, because I think that's a part of how I got here, where I now sit down intentionally and chat with people who I want to learn from and who I feel we can all learn from. And so that came to mind because I'm starting to connect some dots as we're talking, which I'm guess is probably why this process is important and how it helps. Yeah. But that came to mind because I think if that moment hadn't have happened, I don't know where I would be. I'd be fine, but I don't think I would be here because, even learning how to set lighting up or how to set up a recording, I really enjoy that process. Like I love that kind of, I got to figure this out. How do I figure this out? Like going from, I have no idea. I think previous me would have gone, I don't know how to do that. That's too hard. Like I've never gone to uni to do a broadcasting thing or videography. Whereas now the way I think is, mate, everything you need to know is on Google or YouTube. We can figure this out. Like it might not be perfect at the start, but we can get something going. And I kind of see that as like a challenge and almost like an invitation. It almost invites me to go, no, I'm going to have a crack at that. So yeah, that'd be very important. That's an important moment.
What's another one? Another moment?
An important moment as well would be, so I did the internship at Gateway. It was the very first year. It was sort of a trial period, I think. I don't know if it was trial. It was kind of a prototype. It was awesome, but it wasn't like there was no accreditation, nothing like that.
Yeah.
And I did that because I was feeling very lost, even more lost than where I am now. So lost in a different way, I think. Lost in a, woe is me. I don't know where my life's going. What are we going to do? Mm-hmm. And Andrew Sercombe did like a session on gifts, and I thought, oh, here we go. I've heard all this before. Well, what's going to happen here? And we did like a test. I can't even remember which like test thing it was, but mine came up with like apostleship. And so at the start, I was like, man, I am not like Paul. Like that is not who I am. I don't want to be a pastor or whatever. And no offense to any pastors or people like that out there.
That's right. Offend them.
Offend them. Yeah, Denny. I'll offend Denny.
Just go for it. They love it. They love everyone. They're pastors.
That's it. They can't not love me. It's part of the job.
Right. Watch out, pastors out there. Keep on loving. Sorry, keep going.
No, but one of the things, so I was like, what is this sex? Like, Andrew, what does this mean? And he said, I clearly remember this. He went, that can either be a bunch of different things, but it's entrepreneur. So it's quite entrepreneurial. So they start things. They're very good at coming up with an idea and going with that. And that woke up something in me that I was like, I am that is who I am. Like, I don't like the word entrepreneur being thrown around. I think so many people label themselves as an entrepreneur. I feel like you're only an entrepreneur if you actually do something. Otherwise, you're just a dreamer. But something in that was like, that is who I am. That's why I'm sick of working in an office for somebody else. And so from that, I had the idea to start BPM, which was, for people listening that don't know, that was a clothing line that I started a few years ago now. Which when I think about that, that's just nuts. Like that this was after I had that moment of learning, because I had this period where someone had spoken into me and gone, the way that you're thinking is probably quite entrepreneurial, even though you don't know how to put that into practice yet. And then I partnered that with this love of learning. And I don't even know why now, but for some reason I had this fantastic idea to start a clothing line. So I had no idea how to do that. Like I had to figure it out. And it was somewhat successful. I didn't lose money. But after like a couple of years, I went, I'm not passionate enough about this to keep getting up after every time something happens. And so I thought, well, I'm at a point now where I can either start investing a lot of money and time into it and grow it, or I've broken even. Now's a good time to sort of bail and move on to the next thing. So that's what I did. So I think the wedding one, for instance, now that I'm thinking, my wedding was the first one that came to my mind, which is a gut thing, which is still very important, I think. But as we've been speaking, those other two would probably have had a greater impact on me, I would say. Yeah.
Cool. Is there another one that comes to mind?
Not really. I can't think of anything at the moment. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's probably tied in with those ones, but as a moment, I'd probably just be making stuff up if I said another one.
Yeah, let's talk about themes then from those three moments, and I just want to feed these back to you and hear what you think. So, something that came up, and obviously you've articulated it as learning, but something I noticed about the moment, one of the moments that stood out for you on your wedding day in the morning with the boys, having that wisdom shared. And then you said something similar about how Cirques, spoke into your life. There seemed to me to be a bit of a theme of these significant moments about actually speaking wisdom into a person's life. Now that might just be something that's significant for everyone, because we all have moments where that happens, or that might be something that's particularly significant for you. How does that sit with you?
I think it's definitely speaking wisdom. And also, I don't know if there's necessarily, I think there is a differentiation, but I think, like, for instance, you guys on my wedding day, you spoke wisdom, but you did it in a way that was like I've had people speak into my life before, and I'm kind of like, oh, okay, I don't understand what that means. Like that's not applicable to my life. But you guys, for instance, did it in a way that it was like you're at my level, and it was something that I could be like, yeah, I can run with this straight away. Like that is stuff that you've said it in terms that I understand, and I run with that. Cirques was the same thing. Like, I guess he spoke wisdom into my life, but also he gave me the tool, which was that test. As I said, I can't remember what sort of, it was like a personality test thing. I can't for the life of me remember what it was, but without the knowledge of that, I wouldn't have known, like figured out, oh, okay, there is a sort of a name and a a framework for the way that my brain is thinking at the moment, which was that kind of entrepreneurial apostleship sort of thing. So he gave me the wisdom, but he also gave me the tool to do it. And that's what I would say is a difference. I've had plenty of times where someone I've learned something, but I've learned stuff that's not been applicable, or what am I trying to say? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it's there's wisdom, but wisdom for me has to come, not always, but the pivotal moments, the wisdom comes with and this is how you can use it right now for your life. Not just, once you get to 60 years old, remember that this. I'm like, well, that's cool, but I'm not 60. I got 30 years before that happens. I understand and I value and respect that, but it doesn't have as meaningful impact to me. So I guess to use a lot of words, I guess that is.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, that's the reason. Yeah.
The other thing that you talked a lot about is learning. But out of those three stories, the idea of starting something, the entrepreneurship, only really came out clearly in the third one.
The third one was
I'm trying to work out.
It?
Yeah, with Cirques. I'm trying to work out that second one where you were watching the YouTube clip and something, the passion for learning. What do you mean? Oh, maybe why don't you tell me? Go back into that moment. So you're sitting there at the computer in front of YouTube. That video comes on as you're just scrolling.
Yeah,
scrolling around. What were you feeling at that moment when you watched that video?
So at the time, I think I was 2 years into so I was a tradie, did an apprenticeship, was a tradie for a year or so, and then I moved did a TAFE degree. There's no degrees at TAFE, let's be honest. A TAFE certificate, and then moved into that. And this was all things where I didn't actually want to do that. It was kind of like I have no other option. This is just the trajectory that my life's on at the moment. I'll figure it out later. So I was pretty miserable in that job. I just kind of sat there doing stuff that I didn't enjoy. But I didn't have any. I knew that I wasn't happy doing I knew I didn't want to do it, but I had no idea how to not do it or how to get myself out of that situation. And I just wasn't investing in myself. So I wasn't acquiring new knowledge or anything like that. I was kind of just going to work and then coming home and playing Xbox or watching TV or something, which is nothing wrong with those things. But for me, that wasn't fulfilling me. And so in that moment, and like for the life, I wish that I could remember what that YouTube clip was. But something in me, whatever it was, something in it just went, no, this is the way that you're going to figure stuff out and get out of this job is by learning stuff and growing yourself. I have a feeling the video must have been around some sort of psychology, like kind of maybe it was a motivational thing, like investing in yourself. And, the only way that you're going to change your circumstances is exactly that. You're going to change your circumstances. It's not going to happen for you. And so something in me just went, oh, there is a way for me to, I still don't know what it was or what it is, but there is a way for me to get out of this life that I'm in. It's by teaching myself things and learning things. And I'm a person that takes things to the extreme. So I go, heck yeah, this is now all I'm going to do for a long time. So I have a feeling that my productivity at work probably just plummeted. And my YouTube time went up 150%. And so, and then shortly after that, I think I discovered the Tim Ferriss podcast, which was kind of, I'd never really listened to podcasts. I just randomly came across it on Spotify or something. And then I was like, oh man, now I can get like 2-hour conversations with experts who can teach me stuff. And not only can they teach me things, they're people that are living out their dreams. They're people that are living the life on their terms, and I can learn from them. And that was an eye-opening experience, but also I would say very much a life-changing experience, because it gave me this mentality of, to steal a phrase from Maria Folio or something, I can never say her last name, like everything is figure-outable. You're just like, we can make it happen. Like there's no excuses if you want that.
Maria Sharapova.
Maria Sharapova. I think she said it mid-serve during the Australian Open 1 year.
Everything is possible.
Wow.
Great tennis player, better motivational speaker, Maria Sharapova.
Well, she is. She is an incredible entrepreneur and businesswoman. She runs like a bunch of businesses.
You've actually mentioned that to me before.
Yeah, she's really interesting. So that's what I think, that moment, if that gives you more context.
Well, let me ask you, because at the end of the day, and if you're listening at home and you want to do this process where someone's unpacking it with you, or you want to help someone else unpack it with them, or maybe you can actually sit down with each other and do that together, it's really important the person unpacking it is there's this great phrase from the Christian Coaching Institute. Kylie Butler and co at the Christian Coaching Institute down in Melbourne, they do amazing work around coaching, and they use this phrase that coaching is like being a midwife, where when you're coaching, you're not having the baby, you're actually helping the other person have the baby. And I've worked really hard to find another analogy or metaphor, but nothing is as accurate as that. I think it's just such a good reminder that when you're the coach, it's not your baby. You're not the one who's meant to be having the baby. It's the other person across the table from you. And so I think for you, Richo, it's a bit like what we're talking about. This is your baby. It's not mine. What stands out to you now that we've unpacked those three stories? We've talked a bit about speaking wisdom, things that are applicable and giving people the tools, teaching yourself and learning to get out of where you didn't want to be, but you didn't know how to get out of there. Is there something that you'd articulate now that we've chatted through everything that's crystallized a bit for you, even if it's not a word, even if it's not even a sentence, that might be a bit of a theme that's feeling most significant for you?
Yeah, I think it's that, exactly what you just said there. It's that I think each of these moments, especially that third one, especially that second one, which is sitting there with the YouTube video, and I would say where Cirque spoken to me about the entrepreneurship. It's that the only way to change my circumstance, to change my life, to go on the path that I want to do, is it's up to me. You know, it's how can I acquire the skills and the knowledge, and then also put those into practice, and the formulas to do that. That makes me, when I speak about that stuff, and now that I'm speaking about it, that excites me a lot. It's that kind of, if you can dream it, and I'm just looking at this little sign. I don't know if you noticed this photo frame behind me. That's like a little saying thing that Denny actually made that up. That's the old Big Picture Movement, or BPM logo. So I think it says dream it, believe it, achieve it. It sounds so corny, and it is corny. Like, I'm probably going to change it at some point, but that is exactly what I think it is. It's like, if you've got this big dream, or any dream, and you believe that you can do it, then you now there. That's all very good. That's all well and good, I should say. But I think it took me learning to then go, okay, now I've got to get the skills and the knowledge and actually start doing stuff, to be equipped with that. That's the theme, I think. And even I would say on my wedding day, for instance, there was those things where I was like, I want to be the best husband I can possibly be. And and obviously I'm far from the best husband. Pretty close, actually, but I'm getting there. And
top 10 worldwide, I'd say.
Top 10 worldwide. We'll do a poll for that, I think.
Yeah.
But it took me listening to you guys and you guys being willing to speak some of your, top tips around, how to be a good husband for me to go, okay, I'm going to put those into practice and not just go, oh, that sounds great, but actually go, no, I'm going to write them in my phone and I'm going to go home and actually start to figure out how can I actually do this? And that excites me, that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Is that a theme around the only way to change my life? It's up to me to acquire the knowledge and then go and do it, dream it, believe it, achieve it. Is that something that is a theme for you and for your life only? Or is that something that you think is a bit of a theme for you to help others do that as well?
Yeah, I'll...
Doesn't have to be the second. I'm just asking.
No, so one of the things that it's amazing how it's amazing this process, how I'm starting to kind of think of things now, but yeah. I once that I kind of got on that mindset, I started getting really annoyed at people that would complain and go, oh, you know what? I'm so this is my life. I hate this life, this boring, mundane life. I hate being part of the rat race, but and I would say it, some of them were my friends and people that I worked with, and I'd be like, go do something else then. Or figure out what you want to do and go and do it. And I used to get really ticked off when people would go, oh, no, it's all too hard, or oh, I can't do that. And it's something that still infuriates me a bit, is going, stop complaining, change your circumstance, and as you guys would probably know, well, people listening maybe not, but my close friends, one of the things that they would say is, Richo, I would just constantly be start a conversation with, hey, I learned this on a podcast yesterday, or I learned this on a Tim Ferriss podcast. You remember that? Danny used to get so sick of it. I don't do it as much now, but I really started loving sharing what I'd learnt. And not in a way that was not just because I wanted to look like I was smarter than everybody else, because I'm by no means smarter than anybody else, but I loved kind of broadening my outlook on life and kind of going, there's more to the story. There's more than what's going on, than what we think is going on. Not in a conspiracy theorist way, but just there's stuff happening in the world that is incredible, that if we don't open our minds to that, you just miss it, So I think there is a theme of me then sharing that with others. I constantly would share links of YouTube videos or podcasts, stuff like that with my friends, and go, you should watch this. It'll help you. Or not so much it'll help you, but it's interesting. I found it interesting.
Yeah. So what I want to do now is I want to keep going, and one of the things I find most helpful for an individual's personal direction, or even this is the same for an individual and for an organization, because a lot of it's different. If you were trying to do this for an organization, you wouldn't do Y in the same way. But this next piece I think works for both, and it's from Jim Collins' book, Good to Great. And he talks about what he calls the hedgehog concept.
Okay.
And so basically Jim Collins in Good to Great studied, all thousands of companies, and their research was based on, okay, what companies were only good at one point, but became and then sustained greatness, outperforming the pack dramatically, outperforming Coca-Cola, just dramatically outperforming people in their industry. And there were a number of things that they found, but one of them is called the hedgehog concept. And this idea is that who wins in a fight between a hedgehog or a fox? If you were looking at them based on a resume. The fox, he's really sly, he's fast, he's nimble, he's fit, he can run long distances, he's got sharp teeth. It's like this fox is a pretty solid dude. Then you've got the hedgehog. The hedgehog's he's slow, he is not the smartest cookie in the world, but the hedgehog has one thing, which is when he senses danger, he calls up in a ball and becomes like a prickle that just is impenetrable. And the idea of the hedgehog concept says that for organizations that end up being great, they tend to be less like a fox that's got all these amazing attributes and more like a hedgehog that's actually just doubled and tripled down on being exceptional at one thing. And so the hedgehog concept is easiest to understand if you think of a Venn diagram with 3 circles. So a Venn diagram, if you're watching, I've actually drawn 3 circles, but if you're listening, it's Venn diagram is where those two circles overlap or 3 circles overlap, and there's a section that overlaps between 2 or all 3 of them. Well, this hedgehog concept is a Venn diagram where 3 circles overlap, and there's one bit right in the middle that is sort of the sweet spot. This is what Jim Collins talks about being the hedgehog concept, is where you actually have, some people just have this one here, some people just have this one here. But when you have all 3 of these things, that's called the hedgehog concept. And the 3 things that he talks about is for organizations, but I think it works for entrepreneurs as well, is knowing what you are most passionate about. What are you most passionate about in the world? And that's what we've talked about a little bit with the why. That theme, I think, is the start of a conversation and the continuation of a journey around what you're most passionate about. I think for you, that's crystallized pretty well to this point, and that's crystallizing more over time. I think hopefully this has been helpful. The second and the third one. So the third one, which I'm not going to go into now, but I'll just say what it is. So you got these 3 circles that overlap. The first one is what you're most passionate about in the world. The third one is called what drives your economic engine. So as an organization, it's about your profit per X factor or Y factor. How are you actually making money? This one can be a bit complex, which I think it's the least helpful to work through in this context, but I think for others out there, it's super beneficial. Let me just explain it really quickly, even though we're not going to unpack it.
Go for it.
I read something online just before that was fantastic. I'll just give a bit of credit because this is the one I struggle with the most to actually get my head around. There's a website called Evolution Partners that must be a consultancy, and they had a blog about it that was really good. And they explained profit per X as a lawnmower business. So a lawn mowing business, obviously you've got employees who are mowing lawns. You've got the different size of people's lawns. You can either mow lawns or you can do gardening as well. And so the idea of this economic engine, this bit, is to say, okay, what's the difference between running your business based on profit per employee? That would be one way to do it. Or you might run your business based on profit per lawn, profit per job, or you might run your business based on profit per suburb. And so this is actually vitally important for you to understand, even though we're not going to unpack it now. The lawn mowing guy or the lawn mowing girl who's got their own business, if they're doing profit per employee, maybe they're not going to pay by the hour. They're going to pay by how many lawns people get done because they just want that employee to be as profitable as possible. They're not going to worry about the most beautiful, high quality lawns. They're going to worry more about just the jobs that can make the most bang for buck, etc. If they're doing profit per customer or profit per lawn, they're looking for the jobs that have the most opportunity to grow. So they're thinking about places they can also do extra gardening, big like properties, commercial properties,
village or something,
retirement villages. So that one change, profit per employee to profit per customer, dramatically changes the whole business model. Profit per suburb, all of a sudden you're focusing on how do we get the next door neighbor, because we're actually measuring how much profit can we make out of this one suburb. So it's about word of mouth, and actually we're driving the whole business based on profit per the suburb of Mackenzie. Yeah. And so this is really, really, it's really significant. That's the best explanation I've come across. That's why I shared it, because it can be hard to get your head around. But I'm not going to go through that now with you. But park that. That's another part.
I'll find that blog and I'll put it in the show notes thing, link description.
Particularly anyone interested from the business perspective of this stuff, like whether for yourself or for organizations you work with, or not-for-profits as well. Because for not-for-profits, it's not profit per X factor, it's cash flow per X factor. Then look up the hedgehog concept. Richo will put that blog there. But the one we are going to talk about now is so you got these three circles, what you're most passionate about in the world. You've got the profit per X, the economic engine one. The other one that we are going to chat about is the idea of working out realistically what you can actually be the best in the world at. So it's not just about being super passionate. I might be super passionate about running 100 meters. I might be the most passionate runner you've ever met. And I might say to you, I'm going to the Olympics, man, next year. And the truth is I'm 31 and I was faster when I was younger than I am now, but I was never going to crack 11 seconds or 12 seconds. And so you could say that for me, it would have been unrealistic for me to ever think I could actually be the best in the world at the 100 meters. Now, that's not to crush a child's dreams who wants to do running at Little Athletics. But if you're going to set up a business based on, quotation marks being the best 100-meter runner in the world, maybe you should think about doing something else. And that's where this idea of the hedgehog concept is really helpful. So I want to ask you, Richo, what can you actually be the best in the world at? It sounds like a trick question, or it sounds like, but it's not. It's actually, what could you or the business that you run actually be the best in the world at? Have you ever thought about that before?
Yeah. One of the things I've always wanted to do is get into being a hair model. I just always wanted to do that. No, to be on a serious note, I don't know why.
There are gifted people, and then there's beautiful hair models, and you are in both categories.
I'm streamlined. That's what I am. I could be the best.
Maybe the 100-meter dreams for you.
Oh yeah, definitely. Or
Usain Bolt's younger brother, Richard Bryant.
Remember that Kathy Freeman suit thing from the 2000 Olympics? She had a head covered and stuff.
You could break Usain Bolt's records in Kathy Freeman's outfit. Go and buy it at auction.
Zero training, mate. Smash it. Be awesome. Anyway,
the hedgehog concept works every time.
It does. That's the epitome of the hedgehog concept. Concept right there. I think and I guess it has to be. It's hard to say it without feeling like a bit of a douche, I guess, isn't it? Going, I could be the best in the world at this, or I could be the best in the world? Yeah, it is, because it's not I want to be the best in the world, because that could be something. No, you actually have
to be able to be the best in the world at it. Yeah. Now, the best in the world, you could be for a business, remember, we could be the best in the world at making unbreakable miniature pot plants. Or this is where the hedgehog concept, if you think about the great businesses, like a Coca-Cola, they're not doing 50 things. They're the best in the world at making a soft drink, a non-alcoholic beverage, the best in the world at it. And we all love, people love Coca-Cola. But yeah, sorry, keep going. What we're saying. So yeah, you can, the point is you do actually need to say and be as, you can be honest about what you think you're good at. I'm not going to think any less of you.
Okay. So here's what I think I'm good at. Is I think I'm pretty good, and I say this with the caveat, I guess, of there's things that I know that I need to get better at, and there's things that I think in our head, well, in my head especially, I go that this makes you not good at that. So, for instance, one of the reasons I love sitting and talking with people, right? And I love asking sort of those tough questions. And sometimes it's to my detriment. It's something that I'm learning to do, is to not be blunt about, friends, we'll even be sitting as a group of friends sometimes. Yeah. And I don't necessarily love it, but a part of me goes, we need to take this conversation to a deeper level right now, like this surface stuff. So I'll ask a question. There's been times where people are like, Richo, not the time and a place to ask that question, but I think I can be really, really good at sitting down with somebody or a group of people.
Yeah.
And there's a lot that I would have to get better at, obviously. But I think I have, I'm trying to articulate this without sounding like an idiot, but I think I could be really good at sitting down with somebody who is an expert in a particular field and drawing out that information that I, for one, want to learn, but also trying to get past all the big words and complex ideas to try and get that person to boil it down to, okay, all the other stuff, fine, but what actually is the thing that you're trying to say? What explain it to me, explain it to us or me in simple terms so that I can take that concept and run with it. And I think I do that pretty well with people.
Yeah.
And I think I can be really good at that if I put in the effort. Because even if I'm being 100% honest, even as I'm speaking now, the other side of my brain is going, you couldn't do that. Like, look at how many words you've just spoken then to try and articulate that to Jonno. Or I'm thinking, oh, but my voice is so like gravelly sometimes. Like there's all those questions, those things that I think that's just what stops so many people from going the next level. The next level is they get hung up on, but my voice isn't good. We've already talked about before. I can train that. I can, within reason, learn things to help me fix that. But I think I can be really good at talking to people who have taken this concept, which I love, which is I'm going to be the master of my own life. Now, within reason, obviously, like for you and I, we both have a faith and we know that we're not the master of our life, but we're going, I'm called for something more. I love seeing people and learning from people who have done that, who have actually stepped into that. That's something that gets me going. Is like,
that's great.
Learning those stories of like I think I lent you the book, like Richard Branson's like autobiography, where you
man, that book is a cracker.
Yeah, you like look at him and go, how the heck are you like this? But I love kind of reading into somebody's story and life and going, it's actually just a series of small steps and some big risks, but they're all steps that you and I could do. There's a lot of luck involved and there's a lot of bad luck as with what Virgin Airlines is going through at the moment.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But what I understand is a lot of people don't think that way though. They go, yeah, but I could never do that. That's not who I am. And you're like, oh, and it's just fine. Not everybody wants to do that. I don't want to be Richard Branson. That sounds like super stressful. But I'm not so much drawn to, hey, he's a billionaire. I'm drawn to, he's somebody who's creating the life that he wants to live.
Yeah.
Because I think we can all do that, whether that is us, we want to be a builder because we love being a builder and we don't want to work for somebody else. So we go and do that ourselves, or we're in an office, but we've always wanted to be a builder. So we can figure out a way to go and do an apprenticeship or figure out a way to get a nighttime job so that I can also be an apprentice and still pay for pay for my kids' dinner. There's something about that mindset that I love, that I value. Do that. Yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. I think you're actually pretty clear on that. And I think that lines up pretty well with the podcast as well. So, I think that's something that you were already pretty clear on, but you've just articulated it in a new context in that model. I think the profit per X factor, so that profit per watt for you is something to think about, which is a hard one for for a not a hard, well, yeah, it's a out of the box one with the profit per X, that economic drive, because one of the things about your economic drive is you want it to be different than others in your industry. So it's really good to think outside the box.
Yeah.
But no, that's a good answer. So let's leave the hedgehog concept and keep going. Like I said, normally you might spend a whole session on one of those parts of the hedgehog concept, but we're doing the streamlined Rich O'Brien version.
Yeah.
So the next thing I want you to do for me, I want you to tell me about 2030. The 10-year, what does it look like? What's the picture? Paint it for me with your words. The picture of success for Rich O'Brien and for the podcast, for you personally, but particularly for you in your work, what does it look like 10 years down the track for you to have been really successful? Paint the picture for me. What does it look like? Describe it to me. What are you seeing?
All right. So the picture definitely looks like, so I'm studying graphic design at the moment, right?
Yeah.
Love it. Love everything about it. But the picture definitely looks like, for me, the ultimate dream is that I'm doing this or running a podcast or doing something, interviewing people, talking to people full time. So I'll be 40. This is scary to talk about, but I'll be 40 in 2030 because I'm 30 this year. And the ultimate dream would be to, like if I'm being 100% honest, it would be to, because I have huge goals and visions for things as well. I don't necessarily have so it would be full-time podcaster, millions of subscribers and listeners, people who, and not just people who are listening because that gets you sponsorship money, but I have a platform and I have a reputation where I can sit down with the best of the best in an industry, whether that be these super hard to get business people or really sought after speakers or authors, but they go, you know what? I just got an email from the Rich Bryant from the Rich Bryant podcast. I'm definitely doing that because he's so genuine. There's no gotcha questions. Nothing's edited. We just chat. And I love how I can sit with him and it just feels like a casual conversation. It doesn't feel like some, we're trying to edit this and catch you out on something. Yeah. But also there's comment section in the YouTube, which is just filled with people commenting and saying, mate, thank you so much. The conversation that you had with such and such changed my life because I was in this place and I learned this and I was able to take that skill and run with it. And then I was able to, that next guest that you had, I was able to use the skill that they imparted in me and I was able to run with that. And I was in a dark place or a bad place where I didn't want to be in now because of the podcast or because of whatever that looks like in 2030. Who knows if we have podcasts. I can hear Liz in the background. Something so funny. It's awesome.
Liz is on another call.
And like you said, she's a Greek, so she laughs very loud.
She is Greek, so she has a beautiful voice.
Yeah.
Carries with stunning beauty.
But yeah, if I'm being honest, that's my dream. Definitely. Yeah. And I have a platform where I can go to LA and meet with, schedule a whole bunch of different interviews with different people. And then I can go to London somewhere because I'm now interviewing these people. And I guess interviewing I think the big thing is that they don't see it as just another interview, but they see it as it's a conversation. And that they're actually speaking to a whole bunch of people who in a conversation and not just answer these prefabricated questions, but let's just have a conversation. So that's a long way of saying, I guess, but that you've asked that, I've never really thought about that in that detail.
Well, I want some more detail. I want you to tell me some specific measurable goals to go with the picture. So you talked about some things like subscribers and you talked about travel. I think with this stuff, it's good to put it's good to put some things down as thoughts.
Yeah.
Around revenue and profit as well. Because we're just doing this completely, open like we would with anyone. So yeah, they'd be some measurables I'd be thinking is revenue, profit, number of subscribers, maybe number of staff. I know you might have some other thoughts around how much travel or, I know just give me a handful of some of the big measurables that would actually just define a little bit of that 10-year picture.
Yeah. So 2040, 10 years. 10 years is a long time.
It is a long time.
So I think I would like to have at least, and I know people are going to be like, ugh, what's he talking about? But I don't care.
If that's you, if you're listening right now and going, I invite you to get a quick tea or coffee. Come back after Richo tells us he's going to be on the moon in 2030 when he's 40. 2040 when he's 50 or 2030 when he's 40 or 2020 when he's 30.
That's a conundrum. It's a paradox.
That's a beautiful. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. What's it?
I think 2040, I think like
2030 when you're 40.
2030 when I'm 40. Is that correct? Yes.
That is correct.
That's correct.
2030 when you're 40, 10 years away from being 50.
Yeah, well, look, I think the dream would be to have 1 million subscribers by then, at least.
Yeah. What else?
I think definitely there would be like I can see like that big goal would be to have maybe a team of a couple of people. So one person handles all the production side of it. So they I'll do the conversation and they set up all the filming equipment and record everything and produce it so that I can purely be there to chat to the research, get to guests, and then just, it's all about how much value can I extract from these achievers or world-class achievers in whatever they are. I guess the travel would be, I don't know what that looks like.
How many people on your team?
I don't know. Let's say three other people. Maybe like someone who does all the booking, like all the admin. So books the guests, all this sort of stuff. A pre-production and then a post-production. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, however many people it takes for me to kind of not have so much focus on the production, but more on the how can I best serve my audience by researching and being as present as possible with the person that I'm chatting to. So yes, let's say 3, I reckon.
Yep.
Travel wise, I don't know. I'd like to. Denny's not going to enjoy if she listens to this, but it'd be awesome to hopefully, we could figure something out. But hopefully we're going
to live in Antarctica.
We're going to live in Antarctica in an isolated village, and I'm going to be flying 340 days of the year.
So just Danny's in Antarctica.
Surrounded by walruses and polar bears.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
My 10-year picture too.
But yeah, I can see
okay, you don't have to have one for travel.
Yeah, but I think the travel one would be I've got enough pull that when people are visiting Australia, say it's a actor or a musician or a business person on a tour or something, that they go, okay, well, the first port of call is I'm sitting down with Rich Bryant to chat with that. But then also I would like to be doing things in different countries, you know, Europe, America, that sort of stuff. It's quite hard for me to do, this is why we're doing this process, but it's quite hard for me to think about that sort of stuff. But it's valuable. I understand why it's valuable, because if I haven't got a measurable, something to work towards, how can I possibly work towards it? And then money wise, I think, look, if I'm being honest, if I've got 1 million subscribers,
so give me a revenue dollar amount per year and a profit dollar amount per year.
Oh. Look, I think revenue would be in the millions of dollars, I guess. I'm guessing if
Pick
you had
a number.
1 million. What's the revenue? Let's say, be conservative or crazy, say it's $10 million.
Yep.
That's probably ridiculous.
How much of that is profit?
9,999,000. No.
His employees are working from pure love.
They love it so much they don't work. I don't know. The profit might be 8 million. No, yeah, because I'd like to pay people really well if they're doing a really good job.
Okay, cool.
Let's say that. I don't know. It could be. Yeah, I'm not too sure on that. But I think that if we do put a number on it, well, not a number, but I'd like to be in a position financially where I'm not worried. There's not a thought in my head that goes, can I afford to fly to New York to sit down with this person? If that makes sense. So there's a lot of financial freedom there.
Yeah, cool. Great. So the next thing I want to talk about, so that's a great picture of 10 years. That's a strange sound. The next thing I want to talk about is what's called your brand promise, or it's basically your brand, they're brand promises. Actually, it's not a brand promise. I think, and this is partly from a book called Traction. I can't remember who wrote that. There's another great one called Scaling Up. Did you give me one of these? Yeah. Or you recommended them to me? So anyway, no, maybe I was telling you about it. I think Brendan Gibson might have put me onto one of them. And Traction, Scaling Up, there's another book called 12-Week Year. Sort of all between them, they have this thought that I think is brilliant. And it's basically saying, as an organization, so for the Rich Bryant Show, you want to have 3 brand promises. Now, each one may not be unique to you. It may be the same as someone else. But the idea of the brand promises is that when you combine the 3 of them, it should make you unique compared to your competitors. Yeah. So an example would be McDonald's brand promises are speed. I wrote them down because I can never remember. Speed, consistency, and fun for kids. So other restaurants are fast. Other fast food is consistent. And there are other places that are really fun for kids. But McDonald's finds gets its brand promise, or its brand promises become really significant when you combine speed, consistency, and fun for kids. That's what makes McDonald's McDonald's. And so for you, what would be the 3 promises in terms of what you deliver, thinking through that lens of things like speed, consistency, fun for kids? So it doesn't have to be the craziest, deepest thing, but when you combine them, it makes it unique for the Rich Bryant Show. It can be a hard one to work this out. So, but you might already have some thoughts off the top of your head. What do you think?
One of the things that I think I think it does make me unique, is that I think so many of these podcasts, for instance, that I listen to are people that have already done it, if you know what I mean. Like, so they're already highly successful people in a certain field, and then they've gone, you know what, now I've got to this level, I'm going to start talking to people who are my friends and in my network and grow from there. The thing that maybe that I'm different is, we're having one of the episodes for my podcast right now is me honestly trying to figure out how to grow this podcast and what I want it to be about. So I think there's value there in that. Not only am I talking to people who are further on the journey, who can impact those, give us those lessons and tips and wisdom, it's me as the host. I'm on that journey with the listeners at the same time. I think there's value in that. So it's like that kind of authenticity. I don't like that word gets thrown around a lot, but the authenticity in like, hey, so I listen to podcasts and they're like, you know, one of the lessons that I've learned, and I know that you learn it, is this is what I say to guests. One of the things that I do all the time really well, and I know that you do all the time really well, is such and such. Can you tell the listeners how to do that? Whereas I think I can come out with it going, hey, I have this that I really want to learn and I need to get better at. Can you teach me how to do that? Or can you teach us as a collective? It's not just me. I'm maybe the person asking the questions, but can you teach me and the millions of people listening that are in the same boat as me? Can you teach us how to do this better, or how to improve this aspect of our life? So I think that is a value where I will always, if I continue to constantly be me, which I'm learning can be scary, but I'm the most comfortable when I'm being myself and not trying to put on an act.
True.
I bring that. I think I can bring that really well. And that is something that people go, you know what, I'll listen to that. I'll always listen to his podcast because I can identify with his story and we're on that journey together. So that's one. So I guess, I don't know what the word would be for that. Authenticity.
Teachability.
Teachability.
Authenticity. Relatability. Yeah.
Maybe that's a couple there.
Authentic, relatable, teachable host.
I'm just writing some of this stuff down.
It's hard to articulate that, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, I think I can figure out that word at a later date. But I think that's a value that I think people go, that would become something that I'm known for. Is, have you heard about this guy? He's like the same, exactly, just an everyday guy who's on this journey, and he's inspiring us to do that as well, or helping us to do that as well. The other thing that comes to mind is practicality. So one of the things, and I think it's been a theme in pretty much every episode that I've done so far, this will be, I think, episode 19, the one with you and I, it's this one that we record, or that we're recording, is I'm always looking for a story, or it might be someone's, it doesn't matter who it is, someone's story, or yesterday I sat down with Richard Fay and we spoke a whole bunch of stuff around mental health and depression and anxiety. And I was always looking for, let's get some practical tip, or practical, I keep saying tips, but I don't know if that's the best word, but practical things that we can take and apply to our own life today. So this isn't just something that is interesting, but how can we apply this to our life today? So practicality, I think I want people to always come to click play on the podcast knowing, hey, I'm going to learn something today. And something that they can apply to their own life. Like, I love listening to a podcast, for instance, where they sit and chat to like a theoretical physicist or a astronomer. I always get confused. Astronomer. They're not the ones who read tarot cards, are they? They're the ones who actually look at space. You're thinking of
stroganoff.
Stroganoff.
Ever want to sit down with a big beef stroganoff?
Beef stroganoff.
They barely say a word. No, those words are always confusing to mix up. Astrologer is the tarot cards, and like astronomer is your studies the stars.
So like that stuff fascinates me, but I think if I was to choose how I how I want to serve my audience is having people on that have yes, they may be an astronomer, but there's something about their life that I'm trying to extract. And it could be, how did you go from being a tradie, but you've always had a passion for astronomy? How did you get there? Like how did you finally decide that's how you want to change your life? And to make it super interesting, we may talk about what's some of the cool stuff that you've learned and go on a half an hour tangent about some exploding star or something. But at the end, after every conversation, I want people to go, that was super interesting and I had fun. And if I choose to, I've got practical things that I can go on with my life, that can make my life better in some way. And
cool.
So that would be. So I think, long story short, practicality would be a word.
Yeah,
if that's even the right word. And then I think I'm not the funniest guy, right? So I'm never going to be like I'm never going to be able to create a podcast that is like a Hamish and Andy, because I don't necessarily have that kind of silly humor off the cuff. Like I like making jokes, and I think I enjoy making people laugh.
Yeah, you're a funny guy.
But I want people to, if they listen to the podcast, not only did I want them to learn something, be inspired by, or whatever that looks like, but I also want them to kind of laugh or have their bits of, and also I want to have fun with the guest that I'm chatting to. There always has to be some, not forced humor, but just there's a lightheartedness to it. Like, I think there's a time and a place for super serious interviews. Like, I think if I was someone who was going into interviewing ex-prisoners or murderers or dictators, you'd be like, oh, probably not gonna. My main focus probably isn't humor. Yeah, maybe it is. I don't know, but like.
We're having a fun podcast with a dictator today on the Rich Bryant Show.
Yeah. Learn some practical tips on how to rule a country.
No one allowed to do anything.
No.
Only me. There you go, folks. Heard it here first.
Write that down. The Rich Bryant Show, you heard it here first. I don't know why I've always got an American accent when I make stupid
I know, me too. I just accept it now.
Maybe it's just an American thing, but anyway,
Americans are fantastic.
Yeah. But yeah, that would be another one, I think, is that kind of, I think humor is it's something I value in my own life. I think it's really important to laugh, and even if you're not laughing out loud, but just, it makes you feel good, I think. And I think there's something combined. If we're going deeper here, I think there's definitely something for me. I learn so much more when there's some humor, lightheartedness involved. Like, if I've listened to a speaker before, the speakers that kind of that are charismatic and that are joking and people are laughing, I've taken away a lot more than just sitting to somebody who might be an absolute freaking genius.
Yeah.
And top of their field. Look at my fidget spinner. That's what I do. But top of their field, but it's just like a drone. You may as well listen to a wet blanket or something. So does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. I've written down, that first one, that idea of relatable, everyday, for you being an everyday bloke, down to earth, relatable, but relatable seemed to be the word that stood out. Yeah. Practicality, and then light-hearted humor. I think I think those words will, become clearer. But I think you've got 3 clear ideas there. And so it's not that there aren't other lighthearted, humorous podcasts, but it's the fact that if you can have really practical stuff that's very relatable for everyday people, that's done with lighthearted humor, that's what makes the Rich Bryant Show unique. So the last thing that I want to do now to sort of land this part of it, which is the high level, because our next, obviously the next piece that we'll do, it will actually be talking about bringing it down to the ground level, away from the high level. So starting to talk about a 3-year picture and that sort of stuff. But where I want to land now is to say, I think it's always a great idea to think about a brand guarantee. This is another thing that I've read from a number of books that I really think is, it's for me, it's really core for any business, no matter how big or small. And the idea of a brand guarantee is really about solving the major frustration that with your type of business. So, as an example, there might be a telecommunications company that knows people in Australia are fed up with call centers that aren't in Australia. So their brand guarantee might be, when you call us, you speak to someone in Australia. Or it might be a brand guarantee, Bunnings and the like. They know that people are worried about, if I go to this big place, will I actually get the best deal, or am I better shopping around? So they say, you know what, lowest prices, lots of stores do. If that's one of their key things, then they'll make a guarantee. If you find a lower price somewhere else, we'll beat it by 10%. So it's about articulating the frustration that people might have, and then seeing if there's a way to actually produce a guarantee to say, you know what, we guarantee this to actually hit that frustration head on. It's not always obvious. To give you an example, for me, what I've done in clarity, I went through my brand promises like we just did with you. And the 3 that I came up with was around having a safe, confidential space. So for me, I'm an unknown in so I do a lot of work with people outside of Brisbane. So, and also I haven't come from the education sector. So when I'm working with a church or a school, I don't know all their family and all their friends. I'm the guy who knows no one that they know, and it creates a lot of safe space confidentiality, which I've realized is actually something that people really value for me. And then another thing for me is deep work. So actually doing work that's really deep, not just shallow work for the sake of it, but stuff that's deep, which links to the third one, which is transformation. As I did this process, I realized more and more that for me, I work best with people who are passionate about transforming their church or their school or themselves, which is like why I'm keen to do this, because you are in that place. You're going, I'm desperate to transform myself in this business. I need to work this out. Jonno, come on the podcast. Let's chat about it. So transformation. So I wrestled with this guarantee. I thought about a budget guarantee. But I've landed on what I'm calling a 3-month transformation guarantee, because I realized a lot of leaders, their major frustration is, what if I waste all this time with this person, spend a lot of money with them, and then I realize I haven't gotten anywhere in 6 months. Yeah. So that for me is a big frustration that I see a lot of leaders have. So I'm now talking about a 3-month transformation guarantee, where I say, if you're not seeing transformation personally in your team or in your school or church or business, then I will gladly refer you to someone else. So it's about guaranteeing and saying, if the transformation's not happening, I'll be the first one to say, you know what, maybe it'd be better working with such and such, because I'm only about transformation. So I just give that because as an example. What comes to mind for you when you think about the major frustration for people with podcasts?
I think one of the big frustrations I have with podcasts is, I think it comes back to what we were talking about before, is you kind of can talk to these, and I guess it all depends what you're trying to get out of the podcast as well. But for me, if I'm looking for something that's going to be educational and motivating and inspiring, I've tried a bunch of different podcasts, and it's just kind of talk and, you know, you can do this. And for some people that's what they need. But then it's like, as soon as you turn it off, you look at your life and go, okay, well, I've just been watching a podcast with two people sitting in a mansion in Malibu in America going, you can do this. And I turn it off and I'm looking at my cubicle wall in my office and I'm like, well, how? Okay, well, I can't do that. Like I'm stuck in an office in Brisbane. The thing I used to get frustrated at is go, well, give me something practical that I can actually give me a look inside your own personal toolbox. What did you do for this? And so I was always, and I am still always looking for like there's never a golden, what's the term? There's never a silver bullet. I understand that. But and even just recently I was listening to a podcast. I'm not going to say which one it is, but in the interview, it was awesome. And the guest was this successful kind of motivational speaker who had an incredible story, but constantly kept going, I just did this. Oh no, not even just that. And, and then I was able to get motivated and I was able to do this. And I understand like when someone says, you just have to get motivated. But there's another level down from that, which is, how do I motivate myself? Like, what does that even mean? And so I was always kind of like, just give me like, what did you do? It doesn't have to be, and so the things that I value, there's a few of them, and every now and again it comes out where and it's more so the guest is sharing it and it's not the actual host or the interviewer is actually trying to pull it out, but the guest will say, and this is how I did that. And I go, right, that's what I want. And I'll write that down. But I think the frustration that I have, and I imagine if I have the frustration, there's other people that have the frustrations, is I understand there's no silver bullet, but just give me something practical that I can try to apply in my own life. An example would be one, I was listening to an interview with Jesse. I can never say his last name right. It's Itza or Itza. So he's married to Sarah Blake or Blakely. So she started, Spanx, like the female. She started that. He was like a rapper back in the day. You would never know he's a rapper. Created an airline, private jet charter thing. Very successful guy. Does a lot of crazy marathons and ultra marathons and stuff. And he was talking about how he gets so much done. And, it's incredible. He talks about a life resume. And then without the guest saying it, he kind of said, oh, you know what? I've got my calendar right here. And he pulled out this big desk calendar and showed it to the screen and the camera and was like, this is how I've scheduled in all the things that I want to do. And that's how I do all these things, is I schedule them in. Without that, before he did that, in my head, I was going, there's no way that, how do you possibly do this? There's no way that I could possibly do that. But as soon as he showed me the calendar, I was like, he's got the same amount of time that I have. I can do that as well. Again, long story short, that's what I think is a frustration, is that kind of, there's so much motivational stuff out there, but I don't know if there's that much, or at least I haven't found it. Let's take all that motivation and success and boil it down into practical. So I think that's the guarantee, that people can walk away with a tool that's going to help them enhance their life in some way.
Yeah. And see, that's a really good point to start, is I would encourage you that wherever you are advertising or talking about it, or if you're explaining it to people, that's your lowest prices are just the beginning, sort of what Bunnings say. For you, it's about, if someone wants to know what's the Rich Bryant podcast about, one of the things that you want to say towards the start is that it's really important for you that every single podcast listeners are able to walk away with something to go and put into practice. And it sounds obvious now because you're clarifying it, but there's always 1,000 things you could say about the podcast. But that the idea of that is to really, and I think that's a really powerful one actually, because I do agree with you that if you're feeling that, a lot of other people would. There's so many podcasts. It's, podcast is a new blog.
Everyone's
and that is something that sets you apart, that does address a frustration that you want to put front and center. And so I think that's a great way to land. So let me just summarize what we've been through today. So remember, this is for anyone listening who wants to go and do some of this for yourself. This is the high level, and then next time I catch up with Richo, part 2 will be actually sort of the implementation and sort of bringing it down to a ground level, eventually down to a 12-week plan. But today we've talked.
Sorry to interrupt. What I'll just so you have a framework. What I'm planning on doing is I'll release these if it's 1, 2, or 3 parts.
Yeah,
I'll be back to back. So
great.
It won't be like this week and then in 6 weeks' time after 7 episodes.
Sometime in the future, you may find out how to do it.
Yeah, so people can go from this one to that one. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
No, that's good. Well, let me say what you're going to hear. So what we've done now, and then I'll just say what you'll do next, coming up next. So we've just covered the high level, which is the hedgehog concept, really starting with finding your why, what you're most passionate about. Then we talked through what could you actually be the best in the world at. And then we didn't talk through it, but articulating what your economic drive is of your economic, what drives your economic engine, that profit per X, cash flow per X. Then Richo described as 10-year. What does a 10-year picture look like, in 2030 to be successful? We talked through the 3 brand promises that are unique for you when you combine the 3, and then the brand guarantee that solves a customer frustration. And then coming up next, we're going to talk through a 3-year picture of success, break it down into some 1-year goals, and then, like I said, we're actually going to articulate a 12-week plan for the next 12 weeks. So we're going to get really practical up next.
Yeah. Here, what I would just say as well, as you're talking about like that 10-year plan, I think when you said to be successful, I think that's one of the things I probably didn't say as well is the thing that the business, like the podcast and everything, and the million subscribers and that financial freedom, I guess, they're indicators of success. But I think for me, the success comes with it's like a freedom. It's like I'm now doing what I feel I'm meant to be doing and what I want to be doing. And I think that is what I am trying to help others see as well is going. And for some people, like that may look like, hey, I'm happy being 7 tiers down in this company. That is my freedom because it gives me a routine, pays the bills, and I can go and spend as much time as possible with my family and kids. That's awesome, but there's still things that they can learn as well. But for others, it might be, I'm stuck in a job that I hate. There's something that I've always wanted to do. When I get there, I'm just going to be like, it's not all going to be roses, obviously, but you're going, this is still hard work, but there's a freedom that comes with knowing I'm pathing my own way now, not what my boss tells me to do. This process has been so good. Like there's so much stuff that I can take away now. And even as I was saying it, like it's coming out as a lot of words and jumbles, but there's something, and people would know this feeling, but where you're going, oh, that's true. Like that's what I want. That's what I've been trying to say, or not even trying to say, just try to think. For me, I'm someone who it just gets to the point where your head's like, oh, I don't even know what I'm thinking, never alone putting it into words. So yeah, this has been awesome, man. So we'll definitely have to do part 2 very soon if it's going to be the next episode. Well, maybe not. We'll figure something out.
No, we can. It'll be good. We'll do part 2. Part 2 is fun. I really enjoy part 2 because this stuff's all well and good, but a bit like your passion with the podcast, it's only as good as, a year from now where you've actually gotten, this stuff. Definitely. The whole point of it is to help you move forward. So the whole point of setting direction is that you go somewhere. So that's what the next part is going to be about, which will be good.
Thank you so much for the work that you've kind of done already. It's been You've helped me.
That's right, man. It's always fun hanging out with you. And this has been really, really good. I love doing this. This is like my favorite thing in the world to do with people, especially with a good mate. It's good fun.
Mate, I'm really looking forward to part 2. Probably should just say as well, I guess for people that are listening, if you've gone along and followed along with us, I guess keep thinking about those and then stay tuned and look forward to part 2 where we can kind of learn the next step on that. So this is
yeah.
I
can't wait for part 2 coming up straight after this. It's going to be awesome.
Straight after this, we'll just change our shirt. I'll get a scotch.
Change my shirt. We're going to be up till midnight. I'm ready. And Richard, the last thing is make sure you eating a lot of food for the next 12 weeks. Whatever. Okay, bye.
Yeah. Okay. See ya. Stuff you. See ya. But hey, also thanks, man.
I started so well.
Yeah. This has been an absolute pleasure, and thank you everybody for listening. And we will see you in part 2. And I always forget to say this: leave a comment if you love this, what you got out of it, and if you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. It means the absolute world. And if you're listening on any of the platforms, leave some feedback or a star. This is what I have to get better at, is kind of this promotion stuff, because it does help other people see this podcast.
Let me have a go. Hey, cool cats and kittens. Why don't you jump on and press a like, give a share? You love Rich Show? So do I. Give him a like, give him a share, write a comment. Who are the 100 people you know who might like the Rich Bryant Show? Think of them all. Write them all a letter, a handwritten letter. Send them something in the mail. You never know. You can use that as a snippet to end every episode if you want.
Carol Baskin.
Carol Baskin. People listen back to this in a few years, they're going to be so confused. But right now, every person listening will know exactly what that means.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, thanks, man. This has been great, and we'll see everybody in part 2. Bye, guys.
Yep.